right, everyone, thank you for being here. Welcome. My name is Zach Semke. I am the director of Passive House Accelerator, and I'm super happy that you've joined us this morning. We're excited about today's component spotlight with Source 2050 called Closing the Gap Between Specifying and Sourcing. So I also want to take a moment to thank Source 2050 for being a champion sponsor of the Accelerator and for underwriting our work. So thank you very much. As folks arrive today, I'd like to take just a few moments to share some events that we have coming up, and then we'll get into the heart of the program here. So first of all, on the Passive House podcast, we have an interview with Jose Sosa, who is an architect and CPHC. He's also a leader in the Latin American Passive House scene. He is now based in London, so we talk a little bit about what his work in London, his work with Bright Power based in New York City. So please check that out. He's going to be the host of our new 101 series of Passive House Accelerator Live, which happens at noon Eastern every first Wednesday of the month. So we also dive into that a bit. Next week on the construction tech edition of Passive House Accelerator Live, we're going to have Barry Price of Barry Price Architecture and Kramer Silkworth of Balcraft Engineering speaking about the designer's roadmap to high performance HVAC. So that's next week, Wednesday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So please join us for that. We're also starting the first episode of season 2 of the Building Performance Interactive on Thursday, January 26th. That's going to be 2 p.m. GMT, so 2 p.m. in London, which makes it 9 a.m. Eastern. And this is going to be a presentation about offsite construction and how offsite construction is meeting the growing demand for better buildings. And we're going to also hear about the both the operational carbon savings from this model of offsite construction, as well as the embodied carbon savings from it. So please see that next week. And then on the first Wednesday of February, we're going to kick off our 101 series of Passive House Accelerator Live. So every first Wednesday of the month now we'll have a 101 series that is geared to people who are relatively new to Passive House. And we'll be kicking this off with none other than Michael Ingui, who is the principal of Baxter Ingui Architects, the founder of Passive House Accelerator, the co-founder of Source 2050, so he wears lots of hats. He's going to be presenting about 10 steps to designing your first Passive House on this first 101 series on February 1st. And a reminder that their registration is open for the International Passive House Conference put on by the Passive House Institute. That's going to be March 10th and 11th of this year. And I think that early bird registration has just been extended. So if you act quickly, you can get a discount. A number of us are looking forward to going to Wiesbaden in Germany and taking that in, and it'd be fun to see you there. Okay, so let's move into the heart of the program here. In today's program, I'm going to be playing the role of the Q&A concierge. So as questions occur to you, please type them into chat and we'll be tracking those questions. And once the presentation is over, I'll be inviting you to unmute yourself and to ask your question directly of the presenters. We're super excited to be joined today by John Knapp and Shannon Pendleton of Source 2050, as well as joined by Michael Ingui of Passive House Accelerator and co-founder of Source 2050. I think Michael will be wearing his Source 2050 hat today. So with that, John, please take it away.
Thanks everyone for joining. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces. We're really excited to tell you about Source 2050. I know we have talked with a lot of you about it already. We've made some great progress already, and thought it'd be a good time to kind of give you a demo and walk through what we're working on. So I'd like to bring in Michael, my co-founder, just tell you a little bit about where the idea came from and how we got here, how this team came together. And then I'll come back and dig in a little deeper. Michael.
Hey, thanks, John, and good seeing everybody. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Ingui with Baxter Ingui Architects. We're a firm in New York City. You can see the background. And we do a lot of different types of projects out of the city, in the city, but we do a lot of historic masonry retrofits. A lot of them have been passive houses over the past decade. And through that, there's been a lot of learning and a lot of sharing. And through a lot of that is how the accelerator started. But very similar to how we all want to share our ideas and what we learned and how to build. One of the significant frustrations I deal with a lot forever since I've been doing this is just sourcing stuff and finding stuff. And I probably still spend an hour or two a week telling people, including architects I compete with and contractors and everybody, where do I find this? How do I contact this person? How do I get that? And it's not scalable. We're not going to hit 2030. We're not going to hit 2050. It's got to be easy, like really easy. 5% of the people will do that research, and 95% of the people remember that they've got a deadline and someone has to move in. So sourcing is a significant problem, and it's not just sourcing, it's buying. How do I find it? How do I buy it? And there's definitely some individual companies out there that we all use, that I use quite a bit. But the question is, how do we get everything into one platform, and how do we make it easier? How do we scale this thing? And we always wanted to do a marketplace and make it happen. It's definitely way above my skill level. Also, I like my day job as an architect. I could never have done it, but John can. John is an attorney who's been an entrepreneur for quite a while, has really a number of perfect skill sets for both agreements, also understanding the ideas behind starting a business and living in a passive plus house, which is cool. So he's been involved with the accelerator forever, and having John really take the reins of this and make it happen is how we got here today. So with that, I'll leave it to you guys.
Great. Thanks very much, Michael. So as Mike mentioned, my background, I was an IP attorney for over a decade at firms, and then started working with companies in-house. Regretted not doing that sooner. I really liked being in the business side of things more, and was working with a European prefab manufacturer who was considering coming into the US, not just on IP issues, but what the state of prefab was in the US at the time. It's a decade ago now plus. At the same time that my wife and I decided we needed to either gut or move to our townhouse that was falling down around us. So we went for passive. That's when I met Michael. We wound up becoming the first passive plus certified project in North America, which was fantastic. And in the course of that, I really learned so much, both the promise of passive house, but also some of the challenges. It was very clear to me that there was so much work being done on decarbonizing the grid, bringing renewables online. But if we had a massive move towards electrification and we kept the loads on the grid where they were, it was going to be a disaster. We really needed to start building smarter. So the building stock needed less energy, and passive house was just clearly the way of the future. And I really wanted to get involved and see how we could make that, make it easier, make it be adopted more broadly. We saw two things back then, over a decade ago now. Our first meeting was 2013. That skills and sourcing were going to be an issue. It just needed to be easier to exchange information at the trade level. There's a lot of building science and academic writing and that sort of thing, but we really needed a way to have trades learn this. And how to source the products. So the accelerator obviously was launched. Zach has done an incredible job with that to really address the skills thing. It's been a marvel. It's really inspiring to watch it grow. One thing that we noticed was when there were project presentations on the accelerator, typically like the number one thing in the chat and in the Q&A was, wait, what was that? Where did you get that? How did you use that? Do you have a number for a distributor or a sales rep, right? So it confirmed our belief that there really was a real need for better organization, a better ability to find products for projects. And this was all happening in a moment of just massive innovation in the space. Existing incumbents spitting out new products from the R&D wings, European products coming into the US for the first time, startups working, launching new products that were struggling to get in front of the right projects at the right time. There just seemed to be a real need for something like a marketplace where you could find all of these products, but not just find them, compare them by the metrics that actually matter, decide whether they're the right solution for your project, and then most importantly, be able to actually purchase them and get them to your job site. So about a year ago October, we announced that we were going to do this. So you might remember that, and we invited a bunch of people, and I'm sure some of you are on the event today, to kind of do roundtable discussions where we had architects, we had contractors, we had engineers, we had sales reps, we had manufacturer reps, and just talk through, what are your pain points? If there was a marketplace, a multi-vendor marketplace like that we're thinking of, would it be useful to you? If not, what would we have to do to make it useful to you? What are the real advantages? What should we be wary of? And we spent a lot of time in those think groups, that roundtable discussions, to really absorb those lessons, because we knew we couldn't just build something and foist it upon the industry. It had to be something that people were actively interested in and were going to use. So we then spent the better part of a year and digesting that, finding a platform that would allow us to kind of build an MVP, be able to iterate quickly, make changes as needed. And then last October, exactly a year later, at FIAS in Chicago, we opened the curtain, and it's been an incredible journey. The feedback has just been fantastic. We have projects coming in, being built out. Manufacturers are coming in. We have a pipeline of additional manufacturers, probably another dozen plus in the next month or so. It's just been really, really fantastic. Some of the feedback we received was particularly encouraging, because it was around the two features that we were most excited about when we launched. And I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to put a deck up quickly. Here we are. So it's mission driven, which is also important. I should take a step back. We're not just letting anyone on willy-nilly. We want good citizens as vendors, people that stand behind their products, that are committed to really making this change, to really moving the entire industry. And we believe that the number one way to do that is to introduce transparency into the market, to be able to see products side by side by the specifications that matter. Let the newer product win, even though they don't have the marketing budget, when appropriate, when it's the right solution. Allow people to see all of these products side by side and compare them by the underlying merits. As I said, a very fragmented market that we're walking into. And I've talked a lot about, from the builder side, of the struggle of architects and specifiers to try to find the right solution, to find a product that's going to work for this particular project. Manufacturers are struggling as well. I mean, it's so hard for them to get in front of the right project at the right time, the right decision maker, to make sure that their product gets through. They're sending out cold call job site visits, guys with a sample briefcase, walking onto a job site. I mean, it's really, really expensive, inefficient process that a lot of them are forced to use, because there just isn't an easy way to get their products in front of the right people at the right time. So there's, really, really immediate buy-in from all sides of the transaction. And so what we focus on are really these core features, to make it easy, intuitive, to make it transparent, to have all of the comparative pricing and lead times and the attributes, most importantly, there in one place. And then do the work of really bringing the information that's important into a reasonable, searchable and filterable interface, so that you can go into a category, and we're going to show you a little bit, but we'll actually walk you through it in a few minutes. But you can go into a category and select exactly what you're trying to do. You need this perm rating, you need this fire rating, it needs to be liquid applied, whatever it is, and you can go ahead and click off all of those filters and start with several dozen products and bring it down to the two or three that will actually match, and then compare them side by side. That alone has been a massive advantage that we've heard time and again as we're bringing teams on, that they just haven't been able to do that before. They may not even know that these products existed, and now they can stack them up against the products they were using or that they were considering to use, and put them side by side and say, oh, this has substrate adhesion on the concrete and this other one didn't. That's fantastic. I can go forward with that one. Whatever the requirement is, it's all right in front of you. It's really easy to make those decisions. So that was the one feature that we were very excited about, and we've been encouraged by the reception we found there. And the second that Shannon's going to walk you through in a minute is the specification list. And so what this is, we identified in those early kind of roundtable discussions a real difficulty with getting the product to the contractor, right? What we heard again and again from architects and engineers is you specify the products, you put in the specs and the drawings, you hand them over, and then immediately you're getting phone calls from the contractor. What is this? And where am I supposed to find this? And could I use this? And is this okay? And it's annoying. It's taking up your time. It's inefficient. In the worst case is that actually doesn't happen, and you have somebody use something that they shouldn't be using just because it's convenient. So the ability to actually hand over products that would fit the spec with the drawings is a major advantage. So we've built that ability into the site. So as you're specifying, you can go on Source 2050 and build out a spec list, 123 Main Street. And as you're doing your drawings, you can go through and see what's available, what would work in that wall assembly, et cetera, and pull all that together into a cart and then share that whole cart directly with the contractor. Share it with the rest of your team first, get everybody's buy-in, have everybody take a look, and when you're confident with where you are, then you can share that directly with the contractor, and the contractor can purchase everything that's there directly, all at once, and by sprint, start with basement, et cetera. But it's all there with shipping, with lead times, and the rest of it with pricing. So that has been very, very exciting to see. We thought that would be a real advantage, and the reception so far has proven that out. So that's been super exciting to see. And then, yeah, just a little bit about why we're doing this now. I think, as Michael said, there's probably been a need for this for a decade plus, but there's really now almost frankly, an urgency. Like, this has to get done if we're really trying to hit these metrics, if we're really trying to do decarbonization at the pace that legislation is now requiring, and that code reform is pushing us towards. It's got to be easier. There's just a massive amount of explosion. This doesn't actually even include the Inflation Reduction Act incentives and tax rebates and the rest of it. More and more people are going to have to start building this way. It's got to be easier to scale. It's got to be easier to do this for the first time, for a first project team to pick up their first project and have real guidance and know what products are available to use. It just has to be done. So with that, I think I'm actually going to, this is where I hand off. So one very, very smart thing that we did was that we brought Shannon Pendleton in. What we found a lot is project teams are very excited about it. They want to jump in. They haven't done this before. It's not that, it's just a different product. It's just a different way of in their workflow. How do they specify a project? So Shannon has been making herself available for new project teams to just do a little quick consulting call, 15 minutes. What are you working on? Where are you in the process? Let me show you how you use Source 2050. This is what you're trying to do. This is how the filter system works. This is how you identify your products. This is how you build a spec list. So she has been fantastic. I want to ask Ashley, Shannon, if you want to drop your Calendly link in the chat. If you have a project and you're interested in kind of see how Source 2050 would work, you can go ahead and click through and grab some of her time and do a little orientation call to get you moving. Okay, so Shannon, let me throw it over to you, and she's going to do a little walkthrough with a typical case.
Great, thank you, John. I appreciate the introduction there, and thanks House Accelerator for having us on. I see a lot of friendly faces. So we're excited to share Source 2050 with the community and our typical process that customers have been following, because we've had a lot of great reactions from both designers and builders so far. So if you don't know me yet, I'm Shannon Pendleton. I lead Passive House projects at Sanderson Sustainable Design, and I'm involved with Source 2050 and the Accelerator because of the combined missions to get high performance, carbon smart products and practices into the hands of every designer and builder. So what it looks like when you hop onto the website, I'm going to share my screen. and then you start to use Source to find and compare products, you land on the home page and you can start right off by grabbing onto the account dashboard here and creating an account for yourself. And from the account dashboard, you can access everything from spec lists to subscriptions, support, vendors, your account details, everything that you need to kind of navigate who you are on our site and how we can help you better. And from there, you can browse categories and look at all of our brands. You can use the search function to search for products as well. So one of the categories over here that you can see at the top is membranes and tape. Below that is insulation, fenestrations, mechanicals, wall assemblies, lighting, and controls. And each one of these has a flyout that will take you even deeper into another category of products. So for membranes and tape, we've got rain screens, flashing, fasteners, tools, and you'll get an instant preview if you click on any of these. And you can see then not only the product images and the manufacturers that we carry, but also you'll start to see the filters that show up on the side. So one of my favorite things to search for in here are thermal breaks. So in insulation, there's a thermal break category. We're always looking for thermal breaks to satisfy that big component of Passive House standards. In our thermal breaks library, once you get all of them into your grid view, you can then start to hone them down by things that matter to your specific project or your specific wall assembly. So for instance, if you're going for a certification, you might click on LEED or Passive House or Living Future. And if you're just going for client satisfaction, you know you've got a sensitive client who needs toxic-free materials, you'll hit the red list free button. If you're trying to satisfy your structural engineers advice, you'll be hitting that compressive strength that they're assigning to your materials. So it's a great way to start filtering. And then once you've got a few products honed down through your filters on the left, you can hit this compare button right here, this little double cross arrow. And when you do that, it adds each item you've clicked on to a list that you can then put into a matrix and a grid and look at side by side. So this is the compare list. These are 4 thermal breaks that I've added to this list. And it gives you a great view into the description of each side by side, but then also into all of the filtered aspects for each of them, including whether or not they're in stock, which is great for when you're on a fast track project or you're handing it off to your contractor and they need to know right away whether it's something they can source. You can also look at the R value per inch side by side, which is wonderful. And when you start to select these and hone them down even further, after comparing them here, you can share them, you can print them, you can email them, and you can also make them public or private as you start to put them into your spec list. So right on the bottom here, you can add a lot of these items straight to a spec list. We've got a number of them in there. I have a number of them for my own projects. We have a number of them for clients who are keeping their spec lists in here. This is one that we've redacted slightly, just so you can see a little bit of what they look like. So up near the account dashboard, this is the compare feature right here. And then under dashboard, this is the spec list feature right here. And once you get into your spec list, you can manage it. You can copy the URL and paste it right into an email. You can share it through social media with these links here. And again, you can print or email it from these single clicks. You can also look at the list items and the settings for each and take actions on each of these items. And once you have them ready to print, you can also reassign the spec list to the builder. So they can go in and start to change the quantities and start to look at this from an ordering perspective and apply actions to it in that fashion. And I'm sure you've all had the same experience I've had where you're specifying products and you want to share your spec list with the builder. So you're hot linking to all these different sites, or maybe even going as far as I go to get into their business, find out who their supply warehouse is, ask them who they talk to over there, give them a call and find out if they have the products you're looking for. If not, if they have ones that will come close, or if they'd be willing to start to onboard those products at that local warehouse. So that's a really laborious process. And one of the greatest things about Source is we are trying to streamline all of this for everyone, from the specify to the understanding of if it's in stock, to the handoff to the builder, and then being able to put it into a cart and get secured, lowest available, locked in pricing, and immediate feedback once you've hit a purchase, whether that stock is changing or not. So these are really, really incredible integrated features that are only going to get better. So this is version 1. We're a startup and it's fantastic, but we are really excited for you to use it and tell us how we can make it better, because we are taking every comment that is shared with us and using it to develop some of the things that are going to be next, which in my mind, my favorite part of what is coming next on Source is not only including all of the spec sheets and the EPDs that we have now that you can download right off the product, but being able to integrate those into the purchasing so that when you're buying something, you can look at your footprint based on your quantity, and then ultimately not only have that footprint, which is coming from the manufacturer, but then to think about where it's going for the project and the miles in between. So with that, I think I'll hand it back to John. And if you want to reach out and book a time with me, I threw my link in the chat. I'd love to hear from you.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Shannon. And that's a great way to hand it back about the future. And I see some of the questions already coming in the chat about additional features. Yes, we built version 1 to make sure that it worked and it did all the things that we wanted it to do, and it has. It's achieved that. There's so much to be added for version 2. We are building out that product pipeline now. We're looking to go into a pretty substantial rebuild this year. Hope to have a version 2 release, middle of the year. EPDs are one thing that Shannon mentioned, probably top of the list of requests that we get typically. We are looking at, there's a few ways to go forward. Manufacturers have their own EPDs. They're a PDF. They're hard to digest, hard to present, not impossible, but difficult. There are some amazing third-party groups that are organizing EPDs more comprehensively and allowing people to kind of dig into, tie into an API to pull that information directly in. Top of our priority list for version 2, for sure. That also goes to some of the questions I think about location, about availability. There's sort of 2 parts of that. Is it available near me? Everything is theoretically available anywhere in North America. Some of our vendors for certain products are only available in some subsection of that, maybe only US, maybe only Canada, maybe only certain states. That's kind of up to them. Once you put in your project zip code, you'll see that if it is available in your area. The other, we obviously trying to have everything available everywhere, but we're dealing with each vendor's sort of pre-existing relationships and the rest of it. The other side of that is where is it available, i.e., how far does it have to go to get to me? Because I want to be responsible and I want to specify locally, which totally makes sense on the embodied carbon piece of it. But once you dig into that, it's a little more complicated. If it's sitting in a warehouse locally, that's great. But if it was born in Saudi Arabia and freighted to China and then to the West Coast and then across the country, and then now it's sitting in a warehouse near you, well, you have to kind of take into account all of that versus if it was literally manufactured from raw materials, in the state next door. So that's part of why we're really looking at getting the EPD system. So there's a real life cycle analysis there. So you can make those decisions more intelligently, because just going off of the zip code of where it's available doesn't really get you there. Okay. Also, we have, what was the question about integration with design software? Yes, and with plans. So the spec list as it sits now is great. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. You put everything in there. It's shareable. There's a note section that you can leave comments and the rest of it. What would be fantastic, we know, would be can you create kind of parent-child relationships, have alternates, for a particular area, organize it by detail, by application, by section, and then even tag those directly into the drawings, linked directly. So you can just pop through the drawing in that wall assembly and see all those products that are specified grouped together. Yes, we're looking at it. That's the top of the version 2 pipeline as well. Also, the other direction is integration with project management software, where the contractor would love to be able to see what products are needed for each sprint in the Gantt chart. So they know when to order what they need and make sure that it's there on time. A little alert system that tells you, you're supposed to be starting this sprint in 3 weeks. There's a product in there with a 3-week lead time. You should get that order in if you want to have it on hand in time. So software integrations in both directions, right on the top of the list of features that we're looking at for version 2. So one is how do manufacturers get on board? Just contact me, let me know, and we'll talk. We want to have vendors that are good citizens, that stand behind their products, that adhere to good principles, and make products that are either certified or have been used or can be used in passive house projects. We're trying to be pretty open, but we're just not going to let anybody in. Right? We got to know who they are and what they're doing. So it starts with a conversation, and we'll do the diligence. That is a good segue to what I would ask of all of you, which is this was literally built in response to feedback. Right? We started off by talking to the community to see what was needed, what do people want. We're going to continue to be that way. If you're going through it now and you're saying this would be great, but I would love you to be able to do X, let us know. That's really important for us to know. We want to build something that's useful. If there are products that you don't see, specific products that you'd like to see, let us know. If there are product categories or areas that you'd like us to move into, let us know about that. We really want to build this so that it is useful and helps you in your actual practice. So do not be bashful. Put it in the chat today. You email me, John at Source2050. Any thoughts, really, truly welcome. We'll continue to be open. We want to build something that's useful. So it's important to us to hear all that feedback. So that's where I was going to bring it in for a landing, Zach.
So fantastic, and thank you, Shannon, for the test drive for everybody as well. And so we do have lots of questions, and I think that, John, you have covered probably many of them, but I think I'll go ahead and I'll just go walk through the queue in case there are follow-up questions that folks have based on what you just shared. So as we do that, if you have asked a question and you feel like, no, I'm good, just let us know in chat and we'll facilitate that. So the top of the queue is John Brunt. John, if you have a question still, please feel free to share it here.
Yes, I'd like to, most of the houses will be around in 2050 or already existing. And what are we doing? What products are available for retrofit and renovation? That's our firm's focus.
Yeah, so I would say the vast majority of our products are available, are useful in retrofit projects. One initiative that we have underway now is pulling details together from finished projects and from manufactured details that really try to elevate the conversation from product to solution. So we can get to a place where you have a kind of a library of details that you can say, I need to seal this crumbling masonry basement in this 19th century townhouse retrofit. This is my climate. I don't have access on the other side of the party wall, whatever it is, what's there that's similar and what was done. And you can see that not just a single manufacturer's products, but an entire wall assembly that may include products from several manufacturers all in one place, and see how it performs. So it's important to us to start to build that out. I think that to truly scale, a lot of the conversations that Shannon and I are having with new teams that haven't done this before is that it's incredibly daunting to reinvent the wheel every time. Well, what tape is going to work with what membrane and so on, and where am I going to get moisture issues and the rest of it. To really be able to scale and make passive easier, you have to move from individual products to solutions. So to answer your question, yes, retrofit solutions that comprise of several products are available already, and the details are forthcoming on those.
One of the big issues is the mechanical systems. Are you stock or carry or help with ERVs?
Yes, we have a few now, and we'll be announcing a few more very soon. We've got a few great companies coming in, and we've built out some really nice intake processes with them. So you can just buy the unit if you're an engineer and you know what you're doing. But if you need some help, you can provide your drawings, square footage, number of rooms, so on and so forth, CFM, and we can pull together quotes from the products that are a good match for your project.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Next up is Bart Van Andel.
Yeah, John. So as far as Canada goes, hi. As far as Canada goes, you mentioned that. Well, maybe can you maybe run through that again?
Sure. That most of our products are available throughout North America, but there are some products that are not, and some that are only in the U.S. or that are only in Canada or certain regions, provinces, and so forth. So if you're looking at a product and you put in your project zip code and push that through, then it will gray out if it says it's not available in your area. But our goal is to, go ahead.
It will accept a Canadian zip code, which is not all numeric, it's alpha and numeric.
Exactly right. Yep.
Okay. All right. Good. I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So Susan Rowley, she asked, will there be a sort button for products available in Canada? So it's a follow-up on the Canada piece. Yeah,
we have we've not done that globally, but we by category we're gonna have that by it's U.S. Canada, but we're also thinking of dividing U.S. and Canada beyond that, so you can put your area. We have some manufacturers that are east of Mississippi in the U.S. and that sort of thing. So we want to give some filtering top level, even though there's some granularity, by products.
Got it. Okay, cool.
So pushy, eh? It's terrible.
I know this. You know it, Harvey. Here you are pushing in. It's not your turn yet, man.
Sorry, I can't even ask the Harvey question today. It's terrible.
Good to hear you, Harvey. Robert Tanner is next.
Hi. Just a couple of questions. Who owns this and how do you make money? Is it nonprofit? Is it a profit corporation? What are the economics and ownership behind this?
Sure. So it's a startup. We own it. We have some great investors behind us. Our revenue is from the manufacturers. We have agreed commissions on all of our products. So when the sales go through, we receive a commission on that sale. So it's free to use for everyone on the front end.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Robert. All right. Next up is Oleg Slavinsky.
Hi. I was just looking at from a passive house perspective, and right now everybody's gung-ho on induction stoves. Could you include some appliances too, so people actually go and easy to get that?
Yeah, we've had a number of requests with everything in the news recently, specifically for induction, but appliances more generally. And it is an area we're gonna build into. And we really started with the envelope and mechanicals. That's where we're focusing. We're still building out the mechanicals piece. That was our initial focus, but we have a kitchen hood that will be coming out this year, which is very exciting. And I think that's going to allow us to kind of push into to appliances generally, especially as some of the renewable services we're bringing on that have some kind of grid management, and we'll be able to tune into total loads, heating and cooling, et cetera. It'll make more sense to push into appliances so that you can kind of bring all that together in one place. Yeah.
Okay, great. Not to repeat, what about if I'm using a lot of products which I don't find on the website? How easy is to actually kind of put them in the system?
Just let me know. It'll depend on what products they are, but I'm not exaggerating when I say probably at least a third, maybe half of the products on there today came out of conversations with early on with architects and other people that say, I can never find great thermal break material, with high PSI that use under windows, whatever it is. And obviously that's a very easy conversation for us to have to contact their brands. We've got specifiers that want to use your product and they don't know where to find it, So just let us know. We'll do some diligence on the manufacturer who's behind it. But just like I said, John at source2050.com.
Great. Thank you. I'm complete.
Yeah.
Thanks, Oleg.
Yeah, I will say on the induction stove, it was the one argument that I won that I wish I had not when we were doing our passive. I was really committed to gas, and so we went with gas, and we had to build a hood with recirculation side of the ERV and all this other accommodation just because I was stubborn on gas. And looking back, I wish I had lost that one.
All right, so next up is Gwill Simmons. Gwill, your chat wasn't exactly a question, but it feels like there's one embedded in there. So the comment, just I think it's interesting comment, was it would be very helpful if this database of product specifications would be made available on the NBS Chorus specification platform. So just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the main push behind version 2 is to be able to integrate with these. There's so many great services out there that tend to be open source or API. They're easy to tie into that we could integrate with. That we're very much aware. We're not doing this in a vacuum. That there's all these great systems and organizations out there with data that would be helpful to be available through one dashboard for designers. That's the major push behind version 2, to be able to open that up and take advantage of those things.
Awesome. Thanks, John. So next up is another not question, but maybe a question from Zoe Kaufman. And it also gives me an opportunity to give Zoe a shout out. Zoe is the co-host of our new series every second Wednesday of the month on Passive House Accelerator Live called Next Gen, which is providing a platform and celebrating the work of the next generation of practitioners who are shaping the future of building and the future of Passive House. So you had a comment about EPDs, Zoe, so I just wanted to invite you to follow up on that if you like.
Hey, Zach. Oh gosh, I'm driving right now, and I think my question or comment was very much addressed in that, yes, it would be great to look at different aspects of EPDs and compare them. So awesome. This is really cool. I'm going to stop there.
All right. Thanks, Zoe. Thanks a
Zoe.
lot. Yeah. Safe travels. Okay, so sorry, I'm a little bit behind on the next steps, but
that's okay, Zach. While you're looking for those, I just want to shout out to Zoe for bringing that up, because one of the best parts of this is that when you finally have your spec book built, you can download all of the specifications, any information that the manufacturers have shared, and if there are EPD sheets attached, those as well. And keep looking back at the website, because we onboard products every day, or we add information to the products that are on there every day when we find out they have more to give. So, one day they've got a CAD drawing, the next day they have a BIM model. So please stay tuned or bug us if you don't see what you want. We'll go look for it for you.
Yeah. And the EPD it comes up a lot, so it's something that we're constantly thinking about, and I think it's completely legitimate, right? We're doing fantastic work on reducing operational carbon. That's indisputable, but I think it's a fair question of, well, what do you are you filling your walls with styrofoam to achieve it, right? So what's the embodied carbon consequences of that, and what materials are you using? And again, I think it's just a question of transparency. It's just here's what this product means versus this product. I think that just everything we can do to open that up and just provide that information intuitively to allow you to make your decisions is important. And I think will help the market, right? It will help allow manufacturers to see what do people care about, and incentivize them to make changes internally onto their products to be able to compete. I saw just a frankly devastating presentation a few months ago about child labor and enforced labor at the beginnings of some of the supply chains for these products that no one's really focusing on. And I think it's fantastic that they are. And we'll have to see how that develops, but that's the type of thing where if there is a social good kind of scoring, an objective system that allows you to take that into consideration as well, this is the advantage of having a marketplace, to be able to have a place where all of this information is transparent and available, and you can weigh it, as you seem fit, and allow the market to see how that information is guiding decisions in purchasing and specifications. So, yeah, I think it's one of the many reasons we decided a marketplace was really the way to do this, to allow that kind of transparency. Okay.
Great, thanks, John. Okay, so next up is Caitlin Martusewicz. Caitlin, thanks for being here.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks for the presentation. This is pretty cool. And in my excitement, I logged in and created an account, and now I'm like digging through features. So most of these are like feature related probably questions.
Sure.
We kind of talked about the location and availability thought, like if you could put in your zip code, the actual like distance traveled for the material maybe. Specificity with regard to project type. I was just thinking like if you're doing a retrofit versus new construction, or in a retrofit specifying by substrate or existing materials that are on site would be useful, right? Understanding like a recommended for this type of project basis. So
yep,
that's just a thought. And then I think I had another one, a follow-up or separate about DHW products. Heat pump DHW, if there was a goal to add those.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some radiant heating systems that we'll have on shortly, and heat pump systems that we're talking to now. We really want to round out. Like I said, we started with the envelope and mechanicals. I think the envelope is really come along. Definitely some gaps to fill on mechanicals that we're working on now. We expect to have those coming in the next few weeks. I'm going out to the building show at the end of the month in Vegas, have a lot of those conversations in person, but that's definitely a focus. You'll see those products coming in shortly.
That's really cool. And then I guess now what we're seeing that's pretty exciting is like pod products for different multifamily or single family construction, like where it's combined. So adding something in there, and then just looking through the windows that you have, thinking about like a recommended for you detail, because I know there's always questions of like, where do you put the window in the wall if it's a retrofit or a new construction? So maybe like, and then sometimes depending on what the product is, they have suggested installation details. So like pairing that it would like go right with the product when you put it in your cart maybe. So that's like available.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. We usually, when we're going through the customization process, that comes through. And that's part of the order, but there's absolutely no reason we can't have that kind of guidance up front. That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so next up is June Donnenfeld. So this is a follow-up. How does the supplier manufacturer get on your site in the brand category? I think some of this has been covered already, but if there's anything else you'd like to add, John.
Yeah, it starts with a phone call. Email john@source2050.com. We'll set up a call, talk through who you are, what you're doing, dig into the product itself and the team behind it, and we'll take it from there. It's pretty simple.
Yep. Awesome. So we had another question from Susan Rowley, who I know is not here, but it's an interesting kind of follow-up into embodied carbon. Will there be a quick access to embodied carbon per unit area for a search?
Unpack per unit area there.
Well, if
that's not your question,
here, she could unpack it.
I think we could assume that that's right. If you have one item in your cart and it's 17 rolls of tape, and you've got your environmental product declaration sheet that says how many emissions are wound up in that roll of tape. Once we have that information, it's really easy to make those multiplications, and then when the quantities change, make those multiplications again. So those are the kinds of integrations that once digital EPDs really become, a big source for us that we can integrate automatically, we can also integrate those multiplications automatically, which is how at the end of the day, when somebody checks out, they can see in their cart based on their quantity what their carbon footprint is. That's really the ultimate goal, because then we can see what we're purchasing. We can see the emissions that we're creating right there at checkout and drive our choices by our emissions. And then, once we get that information, then the trip to the site is a little bit easier too, because you've really divorced those two things and been able to look at them separately by project.
Yeah, that's great. And I would just add that's another reason why we're so focused on design integration, with the plans, so we could take advantage of BIM and Revit, and really be able to isolate. You'll have the direct information from Source 2050 for the products in that detail, so you can do that kind of summing up of what's the embodied carbon present in this detail of this room, working off the drawings.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so next is Dina Daniel. So the question was, how often are the prices updated for the stock?
Depends on the vendor. So the vendors all have direct access to their storefronts, so they can go in and update the prices as needed. Obviously, over the last year with supply chain fluctuations and the rest of it, that's been really important for vendors to get on board, that they have that kind of control over pricing. Once you purchase it, obviously the price is the price. If you have products in a spec list and their prices have been updated, you'll see those prices update. We're working on having kind of an alert system that will let you know if prices in your cart have changed, that you can have on Amazon, right? And that's really just being realistic about where the supply chain is right now, where there's such fluctuations, to like in Windows and other spaces where so their own prices are fluctuating, their material prices are fluctuating so quickly, they need to be able to adjust those. So don't have a set schedule, but they're real time, and they'll be honored for any purchase when it's made. I should also add, just on pricing, one advantage we have is because we have so many vendors together, we are always happy to look at a completed cart. Once you've fully specified and you're moving towards the contractors picking it up and looking to start organizing the purchases, it's always worth having a conversation there. Sometimes there are rebates and volume discounts and those sorts of things that we can work with you on. So that's important to remember.
Okay, next is Laura Tugwell.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I am curious if PV is on that list. I'm about to embark on an exercise of sourcing thin film, most likely cadmium telluride PV that's made in the United States on a cleaner grid mix than China and with silicone.
Laura, we'd love to know what product you're talking about, if you could throw it into the chat, because we are looking at onboarding some PV, but that one sounds especially tasty.
Yeah, I don't have any one in particular. I just was kind of dissecting a paper from NREL about embodied carbon in PV, and they're saying that if it's a silicone as opposed to a thin film, and most thin film right now is cadmium telluride, is better, is typically lower in embodied carbon, and then where it's manufactured makes a huge difference based on the grid mix. Like China is really coal rich, whereas United States is more gas rich.
Yep.
So that's what I'm looking for, is made in the United States on our grid mix and a thin film as opposed to silicone.
Thank you.
So
can you
by the
throw
way,
the link in the chat to that article, Laura? If you
I sure
have it handy?
can.
Great.
Yes, let me do the best I can with that. And if I can't find it while we're in this meeting, can I send it to you later, Shannon?
Please do.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what's the best way to get that to you? What's your email address?
I'll private message you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
and the one thing I'd say, guys, if everyone on, and Laura, this is for you as well. This has become a bit of an outlet for me in terms of there are so many products we find along the way where this little solution or this thing that I didn't know about or someone just told me about, and then I'm Googling where to find it or buy it, and then Source becomes the outlet. I'm just constantly already, maybe too much, I know, John. We're just constantly messaging John and Shannon, what about this product? What about this product? And there are so many good answers. And that is the cool thing about everybody who's on the accelerator, is we're all sharing kind of knowledge and so forth. But if those products could just be in one place that people could find them. So I was in Google and an email on John and Shannon saying, hey, we should have this. Just send those over as you find them. That this is just a great outlet for that, because again, if we really want to make all this happen and we really want to scale it, finding those solutions it's just so important. And so that was a great question, Laura.
Yeah, exactly. I would say that obviously as you go through, you'll see some of our categories are sparser than others. We're working on those. Renewables is one of them. We have a solar company in discussion. We're going to sign with them very shortly, and we'll have their whole product line, which includes integrated systems and inverters and mounters and the rest of it, on the next few weeks. It's very exciting. But as Michael was saying, there's just so much happening. There's so much innovation. It's an exciting time to have an outlet like this, have a marketplace to bring these products in. I was just looking at agro. I forget, there's a term for it.
Agrovoltaics.
Super interesting. Because you've just got. Thank you, Shannon. Of course, Shannon had it at the tip of her tongue. You've got, especially in upstate New York, where we are. Small farms already struggling, with under the pressure from mass ag, trying to keep the the food shed, for the city going. And then they have these massive offers from solar farms that are trying to buy them out. So if there is a way to not lose productive farms, but still have that solar production, I just think that's really a potential game changer. And it seems like there's a bunch of funding that just came out of the Inflation Reduction Act to move that forward, which I just think is, I think that's like a a story that's flying under the radar that's potentially going to be massive.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Laura. So the next question is from Katarina Brooks, and Katarina had to sign off, but her question is, can it integrate with spec books?
So yes, it can in version 2. Like I said, we built it so it does what it's supposed to do, and it is. And the number one thing, version 2 is in some ways a feature set, but it's also just a platform to build it that it's really open, that we can tie into all of these other software and platforms that are out there, and allow all the information to flow back and forth. So yeah, that's another use case on the version 2. Go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah, I answered that in the chat a little bit farther down, because I'm having trouble keeping up with the chat. It's a great chat. Everyone in here is so engaged and asking great questions. But one of the things I mentioned is the workflow that we're using right now is helping people go through their drawings, look at the generic items that they have that match the categories that we have, and then helping them create compare lists so they can look at the different options and highlight those back and forth and just put links back and forth, much like you would now with a number of different sites, but now they're all going to the same site and the same spec book. You can also note within the spec book and share notes amongst each other about what product has what quality that you're looking for. And then you can also create a basis of design and an alternate 1 and an alternate 2. So, it's a more general notes feature right now that we're really looking to make very agile and useful in the future, because we all know, we change quickly what we want based on what's coming out next, and what the builder wants to use. Maybe they are doing an adhesion test on the site and they want to change one product, and now the adhesion test is different, so they want to change the other product too. So being able to tie back to that spec sheet and that spec book, if you're going to keep it within your own house instead of all online, is really important to us. So that's one of the main things we're doing when we work with folks on building their spec books online.
Okay, excellent. So next up is Terry Johnson. Terry asks, can you give us access to look at your products? Also, can you direct us to the latest HRV, ERV, if you have filter product recommendations to address air quality?
Yeah, so all of the products are all by category, but you can go into the brand section and see kind of everybody that's there. And so you can look at all the products by the vendor or all the products by category. On the ERV, HRV, hang tight. So we've got one in now. We've got 2 more will be coming in this quarter, probably next few weeks. And then I'd love to discuss them. Filter product recommendations. So a lot of all those products are coming with ERV with filters. And what we're very excited about is filter subscriptions. So that you can just sign up and find out what the manufacturer recommended turnover is for your space. and just sign up and subscribe and just get those filters, once a year or twice a year as needed, which is a good prompt, which I always need personally to remember that I need to change my filters. And it makes a huge amount of difference. So just having them show up when they're supposed to go in is a nice prompt. Filter, and then yes, Shannon will definitely reach out to you.
All right, fantastic. So Caitlin, I think you may have another question. So if that's true, please ask it.
Here I am again.
Yeah.
I realized there was a question about manufacturer intake, and you said that's a call. I was just wondering if there was something more formal, like an intake form, or any like specific metrics that you look for beyond like do good, they function at a certain level, they stand by their product.
Well, so there is actually on the homepage, I think it's become a manufacturer question mark or something. You click on that and there's an intake form where you can put all your information in about the manufacturer and what the products are. It also includes, if you're a startup and you're working on something, we have some of our investors that are very interested in seeing what's out there. So if you're still early phases, please use that as well. We'd love to hear about you and the conversation to be had on that front as well. And then the kind of the QA of who gets on and who doesn't really is kind of comes down to, it's pretty product category specific.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it's not mechanical. It's a conversation. We want to know who we're working with personally. So first step is to Zoom with me.
Right, that's really interesting too. Just if you think of like, as an architect, I get one spiel from the window manufacturer up front, and then when it's installed or delivered, there's an entirely different spiel and a different person. So understanding that, yeah, very valuable.
Yep.
And then I did write something else in the chat. So Zach, I'll just ask that one now. You mentioned bulk incentives and rebates, like at the cart level, and I was wondering if it was possible or potentially valuable or made sense, or if there was a way to even do this to tie the products to other types of incentives through like the IRA or NYSERDA, and maybe you wouldn't calculate it because that would be a per project basis and requires other things, but you could at least allude to it, or I don't know how that would work.
Absolutely. Thank you. How much time do you have? You want to jump on? No, so we're exactly working on that. It's sort of not quite a B2C section, but it's an area that's focusing on exactly these incentives that homeowners and landlords might be interested in. So if they were looking to do not full retrofits, but just improvements, replace windows or put in storm windows or improve their insulation or seal their basement, these types of things, where obviously we have the products to do that, but there needs to be some guidance and kind of some explanation of what's available as far as rebates, incentives. We're exactly working on that, and we'll have that out soon.
Yeah, nice, awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks, Caitlin. All right, Harvey, thank you so much for your patience. You have a couple questions, please fire away.
Great presentation. Looked like this is going to be great. My two questions, one is more of a comment and the other one is more of just a query. How are the products designated? Because I know we have two different groups. We have the PHI, Passive House Institute, and you have FIAS. So how are they going to be tied in that way? And then how does that tie back for the designer and consultant? That was number one. And number two, I'm going to bring it up again. I think this is great for the United States. I think this is going to suck hard for Canada, because it always does. It's just, you guys are going to you have so many more suppliers. You have geographical and population issues that you have that are much better than what we have up here. And I think, unfortunately for the Canadians, other than maybe the people in BC, I think everybody else is just going to be scratching their head and like, this is not going to work for us. So I think from a geographical point of view, you guys are going to have your work cut out if you want to continue to have Canada sort of involved with it, because I think it may fall pretty flat on its face. That's just a comment. That doesn't mean I'm right, but I just get that sense. That's all. Because I could see it just when it comes to finding different products. I go, just the wood fiber from a few years ago, or just recently, or the insulated gravel. So I'm just wondering what thoughts are on that front. That's all. But thank you very much. Great presentation. Nice to see you again, Shannon.
I want to answer both of it, but just could you unpack a little bit? What's the particulars of, like, I mean, from our perspective, like Toronto, Vancouver, just are on fire in passive. So the market's just massive. What do you see?
You haven't been up here to try to find windows, and then being able then to find a whole bunch of distributors of those windows. So, and I've done that recently, so I can tell you that's a scratch. You can scratch your head. Yeah, sure. There's Enotech, and then there's Enroline, etc. Sorry, Shannon. I don't mean to be negative. It's just, I'm just trying to be, look, we want to get an air barrier, no problem. You have 2-3 different people you can go to. That's not the issue. It's just all the other components. Try to find a proper heat pump. It's a near impossibility at times, and people have scratched their heads. So I'm just going to give you sort of a rough idea of what the problem I have is that my SEO person, because I want to advertise on Google with Passive House in the Toronto area. And she did some metrics, and there's nobody asking a question on Google. It's 0.1% of anyone asking about a renovation in their new house. So how do we move that? That's a different story, but it's really, if that's the case, and then somebody does come to you, I can't get that product, I can't get that product, I can't get that product, you're gonna have to wait 7 months to get this product. We may be able to get it, you may have to do something else, and that becomes the difficulty. So that's why I'm bringing it up. Like, it's so much better for the United States. If there was some distributors that you have will say, yes, we will ship to Canada and you won't charge an arm and a leg to get it there, then I think you're going to have something that Canadians are going to look at and go, oh, well, now it makes it much easier.
Sounds like a new filter is needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the Harvey filter. We have the Harvey question and the Harvey filter, yes.
The Harvey filter. Make it the Harvey filter.
I mean, I know there are a lot of our products I know are available in Canada. So it feels like we should probably take this offline. I would love to know more about the specific hard cases that you're seeing, and see if how endemic this issue is. Because maybe we need to do a better job highlighting what is available. Also talking with those that are not, they would love to hear that there's a real demand that's not being filled, right? So that'd be a very interesting conversation for me to bring back to some of our vendors if that's the situation. So yeah.
John, can I jump in just for a sec? Because I wanted to remind you about the first part of Harvey's question, which I thought was really good, and I think a lot of other people have too, which is certified components fee versus FIAS, right?
Yeah.
So, or I should say and, right? Not versus, because we're non-denominational, and I know you can speak to that.
Yes, so we have number of our products are certified with PHI. They have a certification process for tapes and membranes and systems, Windows as well. FIAS is now on Windows as well. I think they're pushing into other categories. So we're always going to capture all of those certifications at the product level. So you can, right now, if you go into membranes, you can click that filter and you'll see only the certified products. Obviously, that's not the only products that can be used in those projects. How to build to each of those standards quickly is beyond where I would be comfortable speaking knowledgeably, but Shannon and Michael could jump in on that, where certain products might be more apt to certain projects depending on what certification you're going for. But to the extent that those bodies of certified products, you can filter by those.
I actually wouldn't mind talking about that and Canada. So, but we'll start with that because honestly, the certification thing has come up a few times. One is, even though we've got filtered products showing certification, the point I've made a few times, so I'll make again now, this does not take the place of a passive house consultant. One of the reasons our projects go so well is we bring our passive house consultant in really early. We keep them on the whole time. So I think even if you see something that says PHI or FIAS, and we're in contact with both of them, as we always are, you just cannot replace a passive house consultant. That's one. And then number two, there's lots of reasons to have all the projects and products on one site. One is people can find them. And just think about it. A lot of people are on this platform right now, because I know a bunch of you. You guys are experts. You know where to look. You know what to look for. You know who you might even call. There's so many people who are going to be entering this space. Some of them involuntarily because their cities are mandating it, and they're going to be coming in in a pretty frantic way. Finding an easy way to have people find things is important. But the other reason to have it, Harvey, is hopefully this pushes some of the manufacturers and some of the shipping companies to sell where they weren't selling before, to show them that there is in fact some scale there. And that's another way to accelerate it. I'm an optimist on that front, but I see it as a bit of an opportunity potentially. And I would love for you and John to take that one offline and like really dive into that, because I know that it's one thing for me to say it in the abstract. These are just words. So what happens when we dive into it? We look at your specific needs and can they be answered? And then the question is, once we do that, can we share it at scale?
Well, what's the over under of who's going to get in more words between John and me, Michael? What do you think?
Well, I will tell you that I'd be very happy to have the conversation with our vendors about where there is massive demand and no supply.
Yeah, I think the issue really is that you guys have such a breadth of market, right? And also you have the green initiative that's going on in the United States. I've been reading a lot of articles on that. We just don't have that up here yet. It's moving that way, but still it's just the amount of distributors and being able to find it. That's really what my point is, more so than anything. But thank you very much for taking my question.
Harvey, I hear you, and I wish I felt as good about where I am and what I can source and what the codes are around me, because I'm jealous of the step code in Canada. I'm jealous of the fact that a lot of your projects, when they start at a higher level. They're halfway to Passive House already because of the step code. So we still have some of the same problems you're having, and that's what drives us to create source and improve it.
Yeah, that's the step code is fabulous. I mean, in Ontario, where I'm located, where Toronto is, it's a lot different. But still, irrespective, we're always trying to sell building science. And this, to me, that's why I'm trying to say, like, this would be a great opportunity to show your clients, look, here's your specs, here's where we're going to come down. We're going to show you what your options are. And then it would be terrible if you're looking at, available in Illinois, available in Mississippi. Well, we're over here. How are we going to get that? Oops. So that's my point. That's really where I'm getting to.
Hang in there, Harvey.
The Harvey filter is a good one, Shannon. I'm looking forward to seeing that when I go on this thing.
Thank you, Harvey. Thank you, Harvey. So, well, we have one question left, and this is last but not least. This is a question from Zach Veras of StoCorp. And Zach, before you ask the question, I just want to thank StoCorp for being one of our first founding sponsors and for all the support that you've given to underwrite our programs. So, with that, I think you had a EPD related question.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. And John, good stuff, man. This is really cool to see. And like others, yeah, you too. Like others, I've been kind of perusing the site kind of as everybody's talking. And EPDs were brought up, and I know integration of the data from an EPD was brought up as a possible version 2, version 3 of the platform. But I've been looking through here and I don't see anything on an EPD for any of these products. And I'm just curious if are EPDs available for some of these products? If they are, is it just not shown here? And then also could like an easy add-on to this version 1 could be not integration of the data itself, but just to say EPD available, right? And certain products would have a check mark that says, yeah, this does have an EPD available. Are you guys looking at something like that?
Yeah, we have more and more vendors now have EPDs, so we're just going to include those in the documentation section. So there'll just be another PDF to download, which is easy, which we can do. What we're trying to do is make that actionable, and that's really difficult just with a standalone PDF. But some of the conversations we're having now with EC3, the Building Transparency, other groups, Smart EPD, that really allow us to do it comprehensively. So you don't have to rely on the vendors to send it to us because they have them all, and have processed all that information to where it can be filtered and sorted, and all the rest of it is just a massive advantage. But yet you're absolutely right. There's no reason to not attach the EPDs. It's just we want it to be more consumer friendly than that would allow.
Even as so when you say they're not included, meaning is there like a file limit that a product can have on its page and you're only limited to 4 or something?
No, there's no limit. We just haven't done it.
Okay.
Yeah. We just it feels like in the last like 2 months, we just started getting vendors, publishing that we now have EPDs. We just have to go in and grab them and pull that all in. There's no technical limit or anything else to it.
Okay, so some of these products do have EPDs that just haven't been uploaded yet. All right, that's good to know. And I ask because we have EPDs for a lot of our products, and we're developing more EPDs right now, and it's been a journey. And I mean, if nobody else knows, I don't know how many manufacturers on here, but EPDs are expensive. And they're time consuming to get together. They need a lot of data. They need a lot of information to create an EPD. And, Stowe Corp's sort of philosophy on the whole deal is like, we want to be transparent. We want to be compliant. We don't want to be at a disadvantage. So EPDs should be created somewhat equally, right? But then also to make sure that the designers and the builders that are using these documents have useful information. And I don't want to get into the details of EPDs too much here, but we want to make sure that they have a design life, right? They have a service life that's they're targeting, and to call something like a liquid applied air moisture barrier, air water resistive barrier, to have a service life of 10 years because that's what the reference PCR dictates, I don't think is realistic. So, if you don't expect to, tear off your facade, your wall system after 10 years, because that's what the PCR dictates, it's just never going to happen. So we want to give the user useful information when they're designing, and when they need information like embodied carbon information from the EPD, we want to make sure it's useful. But anyways, I'm kind of ranting a little bit, but I wanted to see if there were EPDs, and I wanted to see, because I did think it was also possible that none of these manufacturers had them, because I know how difficult and expensive it can be from a personal standpoint.
Right. So a couple of things there. I mean, one of the reasons we've kind of hesitated about just dropping them in, even when their vendors do, is that they're as we've learned in this process, they're not all the same, right? Some of them are at the factory gate, some of them are out to the distribution point. You've got to account for the last mile carbon, right, to get to the job site or get to the warehouse. It could be the EPD at manufacturer, but then it's shipped to the US and then it's shipped across the country, and none of that's being taken into account. It's one of the things we really like about EC3 is they do all of that. You can put in your job site zip code and they will do an estimate on distance and elevation of it's going by rail or going by truck, and account for all of that embodied carbon as well. So that just seems like A, more accurate, and B, more consumer relevant to have it published that way. So it's also part of why we're really trying to do this the right way, comprehensively. Second is they are expensive. They are really involved to get, but there is some great funding coming out of the Inflation Reduction Act that's being used to create programs, especially for smaller companies, to get EPDs. Smart EPD is a group that we're talking with that's really interesting. There's a couple others out there that are trying to make it easier. We have been exploring the possibility of offering a program through Source. If you're a Source vendor and don't have an EPD and always wanted one, trying to broker a relationship with one of the rating agencies to make that easier. So yeah, I hear you on the difficulty as well, and and kudos to you for going through the process, because I know it's not easy. Just out of curiosity, don't totally take this offline, but where are you doing it at point of manufacture, at distribution? How does yours tail out?
We're taking it cradle to gate. So all the way up to disposal. We're not taking it further than that, but it's pretty involved, and it's pretty complete, more complete than other. And I know I'm tooting my own horn a little bit here, but a little bit more than we've seen other manufacturers doing. And you make really good points about that. And I have one more comment, and then I swear I'll shut up and let this thing end and let people get back to work. But with the EPDs, I would just kind of warn people that sometimes there are EPDs out there that'll just say, yes, we have an EPD available, and you'll go ahead and you'll click on it, or you'll link to whatever their website says about EPDs, and it'll just kind of be pretty broad, and it'll say, well, this is what it could be, this to this, and it's some ridiculous range. global warming potential values or whatever, because there's so many different customizations you can make to different systems. So it's really broad, and it's an EPD document, but it doesn't give you information that you could actually use in a design. So I would say, be wary about those generalized broad EPD statements or EPD documents even, and just make sure that if somebody's putting an EPD up there for a particular product, that the EPD is for that product, and not sort of that generalized broad EPD document. So anyway, that's all I got. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. This looks sweet.
Thank you, Zach. Just a quick question. You said Cradle to Great. Is that a distribution? How are you accounting for last mile to job site? Or you're just holding it out at the distribution point?
Oh gosh, you're asking me details about EPDs that I just don't know off the top of my head, man.
Got it. Just so you guys know, I've been texting with Zach and Kim. This is going to be a fantastic future episode on the accelerator. How do manufacturers get EPDs? What do they need to do, and how do we make it happen? So this is part of why I like this group so much. It's so interesting, and it's good to kind of dive into that detail a little bit.
Yeah, and Zach, what you were talking about with a more vague kind of description of what a product is doing if the EPD really isn't created yet for all the products is, I think, under the blanket of predictive EPDs, which is starting to undergo a standardization process as well, because in order to get an EPD, you have to have had your product to market for, I believe, over a year. So predictive EPDs for more on incubator products that are new to market are more difficult. So if we as designers want to take a chance on a new product and we can't get the EPD for it, a predictive EPD that's standardized is the only best source we have. So it's we're inventing the race car while we're racing the Indy 500 together. And to echo Michael, I wouldn't do it with any other community. This is a really, really intensely educated and really great community for pushing back and making sure that what we're doing has metrics attached to it and experience behind it. So thank you.
Good points, and agreed.
And I'd be remiss to not just pick up that point and thank all of you, because just scrolling through the attendees, a lot of you were in those early roundtable sessions. You really were instrumental in focusing us on how to build this and what the use case would be and how it would be most helpful. So we owe all of you an enormous amount of thanks. This is a really special community, and it's not shouldn't be taken for granted.
Well, that seems like a wonderful way to close up here. Very nicely done, Shannon and John, and Michael, and everyone. Thanks for being here for another component spotlight and to dive into the Source 2050 platform. Have a wonderful Thursday, and hope to see you next week at our programming. Thank you.